Since we're located in Minnesota, the state of hockey, we see the same injuries over and over again from current and former players. Hip pain. There can be a lot of things that cause hip pain. One of them is femoral acetabular impingement, or FAI. FAI is when there's abnormal contact between the femoral head, so the leg bone, and the hip socket. There are 3 different types of FAI. Number 1 is the cam. That's where the femoral head or the neck has an abnormal shape. Number 2 is a pincer. That's where the socket, the joint, has an abnormal shape. And the third is a mix of both. Common symptoms of FAI are hip pain, primarily in the front. It'll present as a deep ache or pinching sensation, a groin ache, a clicking or a popping, primarily with rotation or going back into that skating motion, or overall stiffness. It is shown that hockey players are more likely to have FAI compared to other athletes. It's because they start at such a young age going through the skating motion that puts a high demand on the hip joint. What's actually happening during the mechanics of a hockey stride? What we'll see is with the leg coming back, that's an internally rotated position of the femur. Also with the hockey stride, you push your leg out to the side. That's an externally rotated femur and an externally rotated pelvis. Combining the two with the lean in hockey, now we have a combination of the pelvis coming forward and the femur internally rotating, and that's limiting the amount of space at the front of the hip. There's a high demand for range of motion, or full range of motion in hockey, right? We want full internal rotation, full external rotation, and a lot of hip flexion in order to skate. Otherwise, if we limit our range of motion over time, then we can get a lot of that friction in the front of the hip, which predisposes you to FAI. Common areas that we will treat on hockey players to make sure that they have a full range of motion are the soft tissue components of the back of the hip, the inner groin, and at the feet. Here are some at-home tests to see if you have a full range of motion at the hip. Lying on your back, we'll check hip flexion. How well can we bring our knee towards our chest without getting a pinch in the front of the hip or letting our knee travel away from midline? Ideally, we'll get to above 120 degrees. Next, we'll check internal rotation. So we'll back down to 90, place our hand on our inner knee, and bring our foot away from midline. Same thing with this. Don't want the pinch in the front of the hip, or we don't want our hip to hike while we do that. To check external rotation, keep our hand on the inner knee, bring our foot past or towards midline. Same thing with this one. Try not to get the pinch at the front of the hip or let that knee fall away. With these two, 45 degrees is what we're looking for. After checking your range of motion, try these drills at home to improve your internal rotation. The first drill is the posterior capsule stretch. In this video, I am on all fours stretching the right back pocket. The goal of this one is to only feel the stretch in the back pocket and not a pinch in the front of the hips. So starting on all fours, I'll bring one leg up and over. I can progress it to going down to my elbows and eventually sliding my leg back. I can even reach that opposite arm up and over. This next drill is a passive 90-90 internal rotation drill. So with my feet flat against the wall and something between my knees, I'm going to walk my feet out on the wall enough so that I don't feel that pinch in the front of the hips, and I can also keep my feet flat on the wall that my pinky doesn't rise off. Then once I find that max amount of internal rotation at the hip, I'm going to go through a breathing cadence, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, trying to keep my ribs down with each breath. The third drill is the 90-90 hip lift. With my feet up against the wall, hips and knees at 90 degrees, I'm also going to place something underneath my heels for reference. I'm going to push my feet lightly into the wall, about a 1 out of 10 pressure, not enough that I feel it in the quads. Next, I'll drive my heels down into that board, enough so that my hips rise about an inch off the ground, and all that I'm feeling is my hamstring engage. Never feeling the pinch in the front of the hip, the low back tense up, or the glute tense up.